Lake might be one of the most unique video game experiences I've played this year, and I'm unsure of how I feel about it. Do note how I said video game experience. It's an important distinction to make. I can't even talk about this game without emphasizing that it's something that has to be judged by its ability to make you feel something, as opposed to whether or not it's a good game. Let me tell you what I mean. I found Lake to be an extremely riveting experience, but at the same time, I'm not sure if I can call it a good game. If that sounds confusing, then it would probably help if I describe more of what this game is and what it hopes to accomplish. Lake follows the story of Meredith Weiss, a 40-something-year-old woman who returns from the big city to her quiet hometown of Providence Oaks, Oregon. The year is 1986. It's Labor Day weekend, and your father is taking a 2-week vacation with your mother in Florida. So you've taken temporary leave from your busy career at a software company to fill in for your dad's job, being the local mail carrier. During your 2 weeks as a mail carrier in Providence Oaks, you meet a bunch of people on your route, new faces and old, and you get to choose who you talk to and make connections with. And at the end of it all, you get to make a choice. Should Meredith return to her software job in the big busy city? Or should she stay here in her quiet little hometown? The choice is yours. I didn't make a big deal out of it before, but being a mail carrier is the single most important aspect about this game that changes whether or not you enjoy it. Your literal goal in this game is to deliver mail. That's it. You're doing your job. But that experience of delivering mail is where you find value in this game. Lake aims to be a peaceful, relaxing experience more than anything else, and it tries to accomplish that with what is almost a job simulator-like gameplay loop of driving around town and delivering mail. Of course, it's not like you just go to different houses and drop off mail and that's what the game thinks is supposed to be relaxing. There's more to this game than that. There's a whole lot that goes into shaping this game's wonderful experience. So let's take a closer look at Lake, and let's find out whether or not it can make you feel good enough to overlook its various faults.
The way things ended up, it may not have been part of my master plan, but I got to spend some of the most precious moments of my life with the most precious people I know. Got to say goodbye to Uncle Stan and be there for Mo. He basically raised me. I'm grateful I got to do that for them. And I built a family of my own, right here in good old P.O. And one day, those kids will hurl all over this rail, just like we did.
Lake's story is beautiful, cozy, and most importantly, mature. Its story and its themes are probably the strongest part about the game, as the story serves as the backbone and the foundation for shaping how you experience this game and whether or not it connects to you on a personal level. And honestly, this game should connect to you on a personal level, no matter who you are. At first, I didn't think that I would be able to relate to Meredith's situation because I consider myself a city kid. But this game is about something deeper than just contrasting big cities with small towns. I'm not saying that the setting plays no part in the game's themes. In fact, it's quite the opposite. So much of this game emphasizes that Meredith must make a choice. Is she okay with how fast life moves in the city? Or does she prefer life in a more quiet, almost still, stagnant little town? And this choice you must make is what leads us to the bigger, deeper theme. Lake is a story about growing up, and it's about what that means, and what that entails. Now, you might be asking, how is making a choice related to growing up? Well, growing up is all about making choices. Choices that you're forced to confront because you now have more autonomy over your life. More specifically, it's all about making hard choices, and understanding that these choices that are presented to you don't necessarily have a right or easy answer. Meredith, our main character, left Providence Oaks shortly after high school so she could attend college. This was a choice she had to make, and that was the very first choice she ever made in her adulthood. And it was quite possibly the biggest choice she ever made in her entire life. It's important to keep this in mind, because Meredith as a character is contrasted very heavily against all the other characters in Providence Oaks. There's only one teenager in this game that you can meet and interact with, and she's an important one when it comes to this game's theme. Lori is the daughter of the town mechanic, and unlike Meredith, she is not free to make her own choices. She's not yet 16, and she has quite a lot of limitations on her life. For one, she can't watch any horror movies, and second of all, she's being groomed to become the town mechanic, even if it isn't necessarily something that she wants. Lori, however, is soon approaching that age where she can make her own choices, and she's going to be presented with some very hard ones. Does she stay in Providence Oaks to help the family business? Or should she go to college like Meredith and live in the city? Or, even still, should she go travel around the world? It's not her choice to make yet, and she even acknowledges this at several points in the story. But when she does come of age, then she will have to make a choice. A hard one. And that's what it means to grow up. Again, like I said earlier, no matter if you're ready to make a choice or not, when you grow up, you have to make hard choices. And those choices have no clear right or wrong answer to them. But if there's one thing that's certain, they always come with sacrifices. Another character that Meredith is contrasted with is her former best friend Kay. While Meredith was able to leave Providence Oaks, Kay was not, as her application to art school was rejected. Later in her life, however, she gets the opportunity to leave Providence Oaks again because her music is finally taking off. But just before she can take advantage of this opportunity, her uncle gets sick. Kay is presented with a choice, a hard one. Does she stay here in Providence Oaks to take care of her uncle and to also help her aunt out with the family restaurant? Or should she leave and chase her music career just like she always wanted to? Kay decides to stay, and that doesn't mean that she made a bad or a wrong choice. It just means that she made a choice. She made a sacrifice, and this is the life she has now. Again, that's what it means to grow up. As you get older, you're faced with more choices. That's the nature of life. And that's what happens when you're saddled with growing responsibilities. And the more choices you face, the more likely it is for you to encounter hard choices. Choices that put you at a crossroads, just like Meredith, just like Lori, and just like Kay. And these three aren't the only characters that are forced to make hard choices at a crossroads. It's just about every adult in this town. Meredith's parents are even saddled with the choice on whether or not to move to Florida since they like it so much. And then you have Angie, Meredith's love interest. Her movie rental business is failing, and she has to make a choice on whether or not it's right to stay in Providence Oaks. It's not an easy choice to make, especially after meeting Meredith. But she can't delay this choice forever. She has to make it. And no one else can make it for her. That's what it means to grow up. If you haven't noticed it already, almost all these choices deal with having to leave Providence Oaks. This is really important symbolism, because like all small towns and communities, Providence Oaks represents something very specific. It represents stagnancy. It represents the status quo. It represents where things don't change. The lumberjack character even fights to keep the county from building new apartments in the town. Providence Oaks, at its essence, is a place where things don't change. The big city out there, in contrast, represents change. But is it change that the characters are ready for? Is it change that these characters even want? This all circles back to the idea of making choices. When you grow up, you are often presented with choices that allow you to either change or maintain your circumstances. For Meredith, it's a choice between keeping her busy career or relocating to a quiet life. For Lori, it's the choice between keeping her small town heart or broadening her life experiences. For Kay, it's the choice between keeping her family safe or furthering her music career. At the end of it all, they must choose whether or not to change, or to keep things the same. And I have to emphasize here, change isn't always good. Change is a choice more often than not. Whether or not you take that choice is up to you. And when you grow up, that's just something you're going to have to deal with, making choices. The story doesn't make this theme a secret. It makes sure that you know that it's a story about what it means to grow up. It references Stand By Me, a famous coming-of-age film that is thematically aligned with Lake's story. In Stand By Me, the young characters are also faced with hard choices. Choices where their entire lives change just by making a singular choice. And the game's final song makes this theme known, too. In it, Kay sings the lyrics, "I pull up to a crossroads. I could drive on, or go left, go right. Suddenly these choices make me smile. What if I just enjoy the ride?" And those lyrics beautifully express everything it is that I have to say about this game's story and theme. Growing up can be scary knowing that you have to make these hard choices. But when you realize that there isn't a right answer, that you can make any choice that you think is right, that's what it means to grow up. You get a choice, you make it, you accept it, and you enjoy where it takes you. But as thoughtful as this game's story and theme is, does it get bogged down by other aspects of the game? Well, to find that out, let's take a look at Lake's gameplay next. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that one of Lake's goals is to be a peaceful, relaxing experience more than anything else. And its core gameplay mechanics are indicative of that. Like I said before, this game is essentially about your job as a mail carrier. So most of the gameplay is you driving around in your delivery truck and dropping off packages and other sorts of mail. There's not really any sort of conflict that happens while you're delivering mail. It's really geared towards being a peaceful experience. You can slam into a police car and they won't really give a shit. There's no way to kill any of the pedestrians. All you need to focus on is having a nice, relaxing drive on your mail route. And it is a very, very relaxing drive. Perhaps even too relaxing. I even got that whole highway hypnosis thing where you start spacing out during your drive because nothing is happening. It was such a weird thing to experience while playing a game. But saying that makes it sound like I think that this peaceful experience is a bad thing. It's not. At least, not for me. For some people, the problem about this game is that it might be too grounded in reality. And that's what might make it boring for them. For one, the only music in the game is the radio. Although there is some ambient music that plays if you leave your truck for too long. Because of this silence, it feels less like a game and more like an actual drive that you're taking through a quiet, secluded town. And if you've ever driven through a small town, then driving around Providence Oaks legitimately feels the same way. It's a place that feels so empty, quiet, and contemplative. I've driven through the PNW before, and this game gave me that same serene atmosphere that I had driving through it in real life. It's a beautiful drive. Everywhere around you is bountiful nature, and for Meredith, it's the same. There are plenty of sights to see on our mail route. You might get tired of seeing it every day, but that doesn't make it any less breathtaking. So, if the idea of driving through beautiful sights and having way too much time to think to yourself sounds boring to you, then I can see why the appeal of this game might not be for you. But for me, I just can't call it boring. It would be the wrong way to describe this game. Do I call reality boring when I'm driving through some beautiful nature thinking about the deep questions of life? No, I don't. But because this is a video game, it's easy to label things as either fun or boring, when in reality, it can be much more than that. It's a meditative game. It's a relaxing game. It's a peaceful game. It's a serene game. It's anything but a boring game. You just have to be a little bit open-minded to accepting it as a realistic experience. And just like reality, there are lulls and quiet moments. It's not like there's a crackhead on every street to keep you entertained. That's why I have to emphasize this. You might not want to play this game in one super long sitting. You'll end up feeling like an empty 6-hour road trip. You can only have so many thoughts before getting restless, right? So I'd recommend that you play Lake over a longer period of time. I don't think it's the kind of game where you sit down with the intention to just accomplish a goal, with that goal being to win or finish the game. This isn't a game that's meant to be won. It's a game where you should treat it like a daily experience, like an actual postal worker. It'll give you the time you need to digest the nature, the characters, and the entire experience as a whole. It'll give you time to think. But it's not a perfect experience. I'd be lying if I said that it was. There are things about this game that doesn't make it the perfect substitute for driving through actual nature in real life. It's a game, and games are bound to have problems. But are its problems enough to disrupt that peacefulness and serenity that the game is trying to accomplish? Let's find out.
Open up the window. I'm breathing in the
Indie games are prone to having a lot of issues due to budgetary and time constraints, and Lake is no exception. Game-breaking bugs are one thing, but those could always be fixed with a simple patch. So, if we're being perfectly honest, bugs don't bother me too much unless they ruin my game save or something. Luckily, Lake doesn't really have that issue in the first place. Its issues instead lie entirely on the fact that it's an indie game. What do I mean by this? Well, I'm particularly talking about its budget. The voice acting for this game is just not strong enough for being a story-focused game. I mean, the voice acting is mostly good, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, the voice acting is just serviceable at best. And serviceable just isn't enough when you want dialogue to sound powerful or thought-provoking. And there are times when the voice acting just sounds overacted and it takes me completely out of the game.
It's just this week. It's all a bit much for me. I need to get my hair done for Sunday's special evening, but I can't leave my cats alone. And then all of a sudden, Frank has gone missing. He still needs to bring me an envelope. Please tell me that you have it with you.
And there are so many odd examples of this. The grandma character is obviously a young-ass woman trying her best to sound old, but it just doesn't work. Kit Boga does a better grandma impression if we're being honest.
I have sent, but you need to check in from
Okay.
your end right
Then
now.
I
Just
trust
check
you.
in.
I'll just go ahead and buy it. That means a lot to me, honey. But there was only 2 left in stock. There's 1 now. And it's
Ma'am,
got
you need to
my name on it.
You need to refund that extra money back to us, ma'am. Otherwise, I will be in a big problem.
And the grandma character isn't the only rough patch either. The lumberjack character is clearly trying to sound way more gruff than he actually is. And though it isn't nearly as bad as the grandma, it's still a bit jarring.
Started on fixing that roof. It's just, that's quite a big job. While it's still light out and all. You know. So, thanks so much for your help.
That isn't to say that indie games are destined to have weaker talent, however. They just seem more prone to cutting corners. As a counterexample, What Remains of Edith Finch has incredible voice talent, and you can hear a clear difference in line delivery between these two games. One just sounds a lot more powerful than the other.
The truth is, even after I inherited the house, I never thought I'd come back to it. But now I had questions about my family that only the house knew the answers to. The house was exactly like I remembered it, the way I'd been dreaming about it.
Can you hear me now? Hi, Meredith.
Hi, Robert. That's better indeed.
Thanks for coming out here. This arborist job came up suddenly.
Awesome. I'd love to try that sometime.
It's great up there. I used to climb a lot. Still do, actually. But now I get paid for it, too.
But hey, voice acting doesn't need to be absolutely top-notch for you to love a story. The thing is, there are a few more problems with this game than just its voice acting. I don't know if the Lake developers couldn't afford their own soundtrack composer or if it was just a stylistic choice, but the music in this game is just so limited that it often becomes a detriment. I know I said earlier that the lack of ambient music helps add to the peaceful mood of the game, and it does, but at the same time, it also poses such a huge problem. Music can add to the personality and mood of the game, so much so to the point that you can recognize a game just by its music. And for Lake, all you've got is the radio. And unfortunately, the radio isn't good enough. It plays the same damn music all the time. And though I found them to be enjoyable songs, listening to them over and over again was definitely starting to wear me down. There just wasn't enough variety. And whenever you're out of the van, all there is silence. And I suppose there's nothing wrong with that, especially since I noted that the main appeal of this game is its peaceful and serene atmosphere. But part of me wishes that there was even a little bit of ambient music to make things feel a lot less devoid. But that's just a personal preference. If anything, if the developers had added 2 or 3 more songs to the radio and the music echoed a bit louder whenever you got out of the delivery van, it would have been perfect. And that leads me to my last flaw for this game: getting out of the delivery van. This one will depend on what kind of person you are. And for me, I'm a pretty impatient person. And being an impatient person does not mix very well with this game. I was actually not a huge fan of the mail delivering aspect of this game. Not because I thought it was lame or boring or anything, but because Meredith walks too damn slow. Have you seen actual postal workers? You hear the doorbell and those fuckers are already 2 streets down. Meredith doesn't even know how to jog. Fortunately, The game is short enough where this isn't too much of a problem. And if you took my suggestion earlier about playing this game in shorter chunks, you definitely won't be as irritated by this issue. So there are Lake's problems. At least, the problems that stuck out the most to me. Were they just grating enough to ruin my experience of this game? Let's recap everything and give this game my final verdict. Lake is a wonderful, thought-provoking experience, and I have to emphasize that word experience again. If you're looking for a fun, engaging, adrenaline-pumping video game, you aren't going to find that here. And that's okay. Not all games have to be like that. The Lake developers did an excellent job in accomplishing what they set out to do. Crafting a peaceful, serene, narrative-focused video game that does its best to put you in a relaxed mood. Its quiet, contemplative atmosphere isn't for everyone, just like how loud, action-focused games aren't for everyone. Even still, no matter who you are, I think you should try this game out. It's a unique video game experience that's best played yourself, because despite this long review, it still doesn't capture what it's like to truly immerse yourself in the peaceful serenity of Lake. You never know what thoughts might come to your mind on your peaceful drive in Lake. As you whiz past those enormous trees, that expansive, awe-inspiring lake, and those gorgeous mountains in the distance, you might just realize that there's more to gaming than just accomplishing an objective. And that's where I'll leave you. I wasn't sure of what I felt about this game when I first started on this video, but now that we've made it here, I think I can confidently say this: it's worth the drive. Hey guys, if you enjoy this review, don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content similar to this. I make videos about all things writing related. I'd also like to thank my patron Edith Lopez Torres for helping make this video happen. If you'd like to support me further, please check out my Patreon. I'll leave a link down in the description below. And if you got some time, check out some of my other videos too. I really appreciate you watching this one. And to everyone who made it to the end here, thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.